Hey YouTube, welcome back to Tinker with Tools. Tonight we are going to be revisiting a topic that I tested last year that is going to be Makita versus Milwaukee testing their top hammer drills. So let's go ahead and get right into that on Tinker with Tools. So in the middle of last year, I made a video with a showdown between the Gen 3 Milwaukee Fuel Hammer Drill and the Makita XPH14 to try and showcase which one was the better drill. That video is far and away the most popular full-length video that I've made, so I decided that since I've got new drills from each of those two companies, that we need to go ahead and revisit it and see if the results still hold true in the next generation of tools or with the other additions that we have. So let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to be testing tonight. So when I made that original video, this is the drill that was representing Makita. It is the XPH14 from Makita. This is their top tier LXT hammer drill at the moment. Now this is not the exact same drill that I have, lest you think that I'm going to be putting an older drill up against a newer one. This one was actually replaced under warranty because I had a problem with the transmission on the first one. This is actually the newest of the drills we're going to be testing tonight, even though model-wise it's actually the oldest. Now the XPH14 is not a bad drill by any means. It does offer 1,250 inch-pounds of torque and offers a lot of the specs that you'd expect to see. But how is it going to stack up against what the top is from Milwaukee? Now for Milwaukee, we are going to be going with the Gen 4 hammer drill. And this is the latest and greatest hammer drill from Milwaukee. But this tool does feature several notable improvements from the Gen 3 model. First off, you're going to be getting the auto stop technology, which does kind of protect the user. We did see an improvement of 200 inch-pounds of torque going from 1,200 up to 1,400, kind of keeping it up there at the top of where it is. Overall, the rest of the tool functions quite a bit similar to what it is. So we are going to be going ahead and running this one to represent Milwaukee. Now that being said, the XPH14 is not actually the biggest and baddest drill that Makita makes. As you're well aware at this point, Makita actually came out with their XGT lineup, which is their 40-volt platform, which is where, in my opinion, they're dedicating considerable amounts of their research and development to bring new technology to those tools. So I do have the GPH01, the Makita XGT hammer drill, which when you start to look at them, they do look very similar, but in my experience in testing, these tools are actually quite a bit different. Now, performance-wise on paper, they're relatively the same, with the exception this one is going to have much higher RPMs in its top speed. This one is 2,600 RPMs to the 2,100 here. Now, depending on what you're drilling, that could be incredibly helpful for you. For some things, it might actually be a little bit too fast. Now, the other noticeable difference is this has your very traditional clutch ring up here that you're going to be able to adjust. The XGT actually has a digital clutch interface down on the base of the tool and has significantly more options when it comes to being able to dial it in. So you can really refine the precision with this tool to be able to do that. Now with that, it's going to be an electronic clutch, whereas Milwaukee went back to a mechanical clutch on this model compared to what they had in previous generations. Now, the reason why I want to be able to test both the LXT and the XGT is anytime I post a video featuring XGT, we do get people that say, no, you don't need to be up on XGT unless you take this tool or unless you use this tool. We have not seen as much development, in my opinion, on the LXT lineup as what you are seeing on the XGT. Take, for example, the batteries. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with a Makita battery, but they've been relatively unchanged for several years now, and you're not seeing increase in capacity going with some larger amp hour batteries. We're not seeing them go the way of, for example, the high output batteries and offering a battery with 21,700 cells, even though we know they have the ability to implement that technology because the XGT lineup does have those bigger cells in their batteries. So when it comes to the LXT platform, it does kind of feel at times like you're a little bit stuck. But how does the performance stack up against the latest and greatest from Milwaukee and even from Makita? Well, let's go ahead and run through some tests on both of these tools. We'll see kind of how they stack up against each other, and then we'll come back for some conclusions. All right, so you'll have just seen the performance figures. I have not seen those yet, but I will kind of just let you know what my impressions are from using the tools. When I reviewed these tools back with the Gen 3 Fuel Hammer Drill, my conclusion was simply that the LXT felt like a really robust tool up to a certain point. And that point, in my opinion, is when Makita kind of steps in and says, no, we're not going to let you do that to the tool because it is protecting the tool. Milwaukee lets you fly a little bit closer to the sun in terms of what they're willing to let you do with their drill, maybe even to the detriment of the tool, but they do allow you to access kind of more. The Makita certainly feels like it has the strength to keep going, but then it kind of just seems to cut in and not let it actually, whether it's the battery or the tool itself that is actually limiting what it can do to kind of preserve itself. That's what it seems like with this. When you're on smaller fasteners or smaller drill bits, you certainly do feel like the Makita definitely has the ability to compete with Milwaukee. Now, is it quite as fast? I don't know. You'll have seen those results. It doesn't really feel like it's truly a step behind. Now, when it gets up to really demanding task, that's where you can kind of see the Milwaukee's ability to kind of let their tool go, allow you to kind of push through and get a task done. Being able to do the 2 9/16, even if it was a little bit slow this time we tested it, being able to do the 2 9/16 on the Milwaukee, you could see that the Makita was not able to do that. When it comes down to it, neither one of these is a bad drill, but you're certainly going to be having some trade-offs or some differences, and really it's just a different mentality for how to do it. Makita seems to have engineered a really strong, well-built tool that is going to work up to a certain point, and then obviously, you know, on that bigger bit, we could have dropped down to speed 1 and continued on and easily been able to drill that hole in speed 1. So they're not going to leave you with the inability to do it, but they might not be doing it as fast as what some of the competition is doing. Now, when it comes down to the Makitas, now we have reviewed these drills compared to each other before. When it kind of comes to that top tier of hammer drill, I'll go on the record as saying the XGT is my favorite to use. And for the most part, it does not let me down. It will do the majority of tasks better and faster than what you're going to get with the LXT. I think the XGT takes everything that was good and nice about the LXT and really just kind of gives it an extra dose of power or extra little boost to kind of allow it to do a little bit more. That makes it so it feels less like it is restricting you and more like it's just straight up competing with everyone else. Obviously, others have tested it, and we know that this is an impressive drill. Not necessarily saying that it's the most impressive or the strongest or anything like that, but this is right up there with the most performant tools on the market, in my opinion. Now, the LXT is getting a little bit old at this point. It's by no means a new model. We're probably due for an upgrade in the next year or so to this drill, so it'll be interesting to see what they come out with and if they do actually replace it with something bigger and better. The one place where you're really receiving a benefit from being at the XGT lineup is going to be in the batteries, as I mentioned earlier. It just feels like the XGT lineup is where they're putting their attention and focus, and in turn putting some dollars behind it. And it almost feels like LXT is getting left a little bit behind. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I get comments each and every time saying there's no way anyone needs to own XGT, LXT is enough. And for the majority of people, you're probably right. The LXT probably is enough. But one of the things that I don't like to do is invest money in a tool platform that starts to show the signs of maybe not being the primary focus of a company. When you see XGT, you're seeing new product launches, you're seeing further developments in battery technology, and with LXT, you're just not seeing that. So when it comes down to it, if I were investing from start in one of the Makita platforms, I would probably be going with the XGT. All right, so there you have it. We've done this review again. I think it's interesting to see if there's any difference at all generationally as we test new generations of tools. And I think when it comes to Milwaukee, they obviously made some improvements, but it's not like this drill was the huge step forward that maybe we have seen in the past. And instead, this felt a little bit more like further refinements to keep the tool where it was at and where it needed to be kind of at the top of the market or competing with the top of the market. If you like what you saw in the video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you have any questions about any of the tools or any comments on the video, please leave them down below. I love to be able to interact with you guys and be able to see what your opinions are of the tools that we test. Thanks again for all the support. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And until next time, I'll catch you on Tinker with Tools.